Great. Okay, maybe we may wait 1 or 2 minutes to let people come in. And then we'll start off. All right. Any hangers-on will eventually join. Okay, I'm just making sure this is good to go. Okay, all right, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. It's the latest in the Climate Change and WASH webinar series organized by the European Microfinance Platform's WASH, Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Action Group. The Action Group is funded by e-MFP and Aqua for All, who organized the webinar today with the help of Azure Initiative, funded by the Catholic Relief Services and the Inter-American Development Bank, as well as our colleagues from City and Bank in Kenya. So for those who do not know, the WASH Action Group has been operating since 2021 with the goal of sharing and expanding knowledge on the WASH sector with helpful steering from Aqua for All. The aim of this webinar is to hear and discuss case studies of different institutions and how they've mobilized, climate finance towards WASH projects, sharing the challenges and successes. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to today's moderator, Owais Shafiq of Aqua for All, who's also the head of the AG himself.
Thank you, Jack, and thanks everyone for being here today. Good morning, afternoon, evening, from wherever you are connecting. I think it's very interesting that we're gathered here today to talk about climate finance and WASH. Climate finance has been a term that has been growing largely, and of course, the amount of capital is being allocated towards it is well increasing. But what we mostly see in the ecosystem today is that a lot of this climate finance is going towards renewable energy, EV projects. Approximately 90% of climate finance goes towards greenhouse gas mitigation only. And in this process, you're clearly overlooking many of the sectors where climate finance is necessary and can have a huge impact. One such sector, which we are, of course, interested in, is in water and sanitation. And even in water and sanitation, we see that most of the amounts from climate finance that are allocated are going towards specific mitigation projects and missing out perhaps on the focus that's necessary towards vulnerable population that lacks access to reliable, resilient water and sanitation services. Reasons for climate finance not reaching these sectors are multiple, but I believe mostly the focus has been on the information gap that exists on what climate finance is, especially in water and sanitation. At Aqua for All, we have been developing this knowledge and executing projects to enable more climate resilient water and sanitation services. But we also do believe that with the help of the panelists that we have today, Carlos and John Patrick, where they can share their own experiences working on climate resilience WASH projects in their specific context. So today we would have today's session, I think we're going to be organized by having two presentations, first by John Patrick and then by Carlos for about 15 minutes each. And then we will open up to Q&A from the audience or perhaps from myself as well. A little introduction of our panelists today. John is currently serving as the senior manager of a branch banking and partnerships at City and Bank. He has a record in developing and managing successful banking operations and partnerships, but he is a dedicated WASH professional and he's advocated for sustainable and equitable access to water and sanitation services at his branch and in Kenya. We also have with us Carlos, who is a director at Azure Initiative. In this current role, Carlos focuses on establishing partnerships at the global, regional, and national levels with organizations that share Azure's mission, which is enabling small water operators to provide sustainable water services. I'm going to invite John to take on his presentation to speak about how Citian Bank is approaching climate resilient wash. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Wise. I hope I hope I'm audible. Happy to be here. Pleasure to be here. So, based on my introduction, yes, I'm from Citian Bank, and I just want to take you through what you're doing at Citian Bank here in the country. So, I'll start with a brief introduction of the bank. Just very briefly, going to the next slide. So basically, we are a bank that serves the corporate and SME sector, but our history has been mostly on the micro side. So we still maintain the micro side of business and also now grow the clients from a perspective of the SME and corporates. So our vision is to be the preferred partner in realizing entrepreneurial potential with about 46 branches in the country. We can move on to the next slide. So starting our wash journey as a bank, we started this back in the early 1984s, and we've been able to do a lot of projects in the communities that we serve, where we've been able to work, especially because we started as an NGO back in the day known as KREP Bank. We were able to do a lot of community projects with the communities, and just to ensure that they have the last mile connectivity, and not just the last mile connectivity, but also ensuring that they are able to come up with treatment plans to make sure that we get clean water that can be used for domestic use. This has had apart from us giving solutions from a financial perspective, where we are able to give normal loans that will be given by any other bank, that will be the SME trade finance loans and the likes. We also have a social responsibility, and that's why we are very keen to play in the wash space, because now this is what gives dignity to our peoples, and we work very closely with both the public and private utilities just to ensure that we are able to push the last mile connectivity. Based on the work that we've done, we've been able to attract a lot of partners, both local and international, the likes of Aqua for All. We have USAID, we have AGF, some of them who provide a liquidity, some of them give technical assistance, and others also give portfolio guarantees. Because one thing that you'll realize, especially when you're working even with the water service providers, both private and public, collateral is a challenge. And basically, if we are able to work with partners and offer blended finance, then basically we are able to give the solutions. We can move on to the next slide. So again, continuing with our journey, one of the things that we are realizing, for example, in the country is distribution of water is very expensive in the country. And we have now been, because of the cost of power in the country, so we've been focusing a lot on clean energy and solarization, just to ensure that we are able to maintain our environments and encourage people not to cut trees for the purpose of just for whatever purposes that would harm the environment, or the use of other methods which damage the environment. So solarization, I think being within the tropics works to our advantage, and we have quite some good sunshine, which enables us to be able to pump water even upstream, where we can be able now to have a greater impact to the communities we serve. So the communities that we give this water would range from some being in agriculture, the health sectors, the education. We have all those coming into that you are able to assist in terms of getting access to water. 20% of the bank's business also is in the micro group and community-based organization. Remember, based on our growth from 1986, we have been able to grow most of this from micros to the SMEs and the corporates, but we still maintain our micro sector, which we continue to support. We can move on to the next slide. So basically, that's our wash journey. But apart from just giving money, because you've seen we have a micro element, we also do financial literacy, especially to groups, which works very, very well for the groups to just ensure that even the projects that they invest into are sustainable into the future. Moving to the next slide. Just to talk about some of the recent projects that we have done, we did a very successful COVID response program, which was basically a working capital that we are giving to the small micro enterprises to just help deal with the challenges of COVID and also the water service providers. This was a project that was scheduled to run for 2 years, but based on the uptake and the demand that was there, especially even during this COVID period, we were able to disburse loans in excess of 5 million euros in a period of about 13 months. Apart from that, we have been able to reach quite a number of people. If you look at the impact that we've had in the community, we've been able to have an impact even into excess of 3 million people within the country, and also serve in excess of 600 MSMEs. This is not to even count the micro businesses and the individuals that we've been able to impact. We've been, based on the work that we've done, we've been able to attract a lot of partners. The latest being Oiko Credit, where we are working on a phase 3 on a climate solution. But apart from that, we've been able to also get in excess of $10 million from the likes of Oiko Credit, yes, even from Water Equity, just to push this agenda. Probably can go to the next slide. So this is the learnings that we have been getting as we during our CDN WASH history. Basically, we've come to realize that this is a sector that you can be able to finance. Most of the banks in the country were shy of financing the water sector because of the risks that they had inherent. But because of blended finance as a bank and the solutions that you're able to work out with our partners, this is able to assist us be able to mobilize a lot of loans and also make sure that the loans are paid back so that we can be able to invest even in other activities. We have done projects even with the likes of World Bank, where we have done 40% performance-based grant projects, the likes of Maji Maisha project. Apart from that, I've just mentioned the one for Aquafall, where we've done in excess of 5 million euros. Water Equity, and also currently we are doing quite a number of projects even in Western Kenya for both sanitation and water, where we have a challenge from that front. We can move to the next slide. So our focus as a bank and our target market continues to be the micro enterprises, the small and medium and private players. Then the bulk of our concentration, for example, especially on our WASH program, is the water service providers. Those are both private, the ones that are regulated, and also the public ones. Currently in the country, the demand for water, if you look at the growing population that we have unreliable water supply in the country. Investments are viable in this sector, and demand for water, currently we are only able to reach 59% with safe drinking water and 29% with those who can be able to have access to improved sanitation facilities. So there's quite some demand that you can be able to address from this front. We can move on to the next slide. So how we do it, we do origination by deal sourcing. Our deal sourcing origination, we have the CDN Bank staff members who assist with that, market storming, and also referral from both our customers and even our partners. Then we also do the needs identification in the target market as we screen the customers. Then we have, for us as a bank, we do not believe in products off the shelf, but tailor-made solutions, where we are able to tailor-make solutions meeting our customers' needs. So we look at the problem, tailor-make a solution, and come up with something that can work. So we have de-risking tools, we have price subsidies, we have technical assistance and capacity building that are offered by different partners. And as an example is Aqua for All, who are on this call. We can move on to the next slide. So I think these are the milestones which I've talked about in the previous slides, but I just want to comment on the last part where we are saying that as much as initially we were focusing on giving loans to WASH, an analysis of our portfolio, we were able to establish that at least 22% of our facilities went towards projects that were reducing greenhouse emissions. So basically, this has been very positive, and now we are very intentional to go on this front to make sure that we are able to offer a clean solution to all our clients. You can move on to the next slide. So this is just from a portfolio performance, the impact we've had. So if you look at water resource management, that contributes to about 16% of our portfolio. That is according to the SDG 6 themes. Then in terms of clean drinking water, that contributes about 30%. Sanitation and hygiene contributes about 52%. So again, the impact we've had right now, we've had impact in excess of 3 million customers. And the portfolio that we are currently holding, not counting what has been paid off, is in excess of 10 million. We can move on to the next slide. So these are just some of the partners that we work with, just for our own information. Some are local. We work also very closely with the government of Kenya to make sure that we are aligned based on the government agenda of ensuring water to all. We can move on to the next slide. So these are the barriers we noticed to finance, especially to the water utilities. So there was an issue of the tariffs being a challenge, and some having very old tariffs that needed to be updated. Some of them in terms of governance, where we do not have cash flow being reinvested, being able to work for them. Seasonality, the rainfall, when you find there is rain, there is low demand for water. When there is no rain, the demand is very high, and just helping them keep up with this. Then disruption by government sometimes in terms of how especially the public utilities are run. So those have been some of the issues that we've noticed in the sector. And the other one is the cost of power, which is a big one. And solarization is able to address this particular challenge. We can move to the next slide. So this is just what I was talking about, the blended finance that we've been working with different partners. So we have partners giving us price subsidies, some of them giving us the liquidity for lending. Some are giving us portfolio guarantees, and some even giving us CapEx grants. Then we cleanly do monitoring and evaluation and pick the lessons through monitoring and evaluation tools. And this is assisted by a technical assistance that we get from the likes of Aqua for All. We can move on to the next slide. So just to mention on our last phase, what we are doing, the last phase, we have launched a new phase with the partnership with Aqua for All and Oiko Credit, which is specifically the WASH financing program that is geared towards ensuring that we give solution to WASH with a nexus for gender, and also with a nexus for climate and also for gender. So for this particular phase today, we are looking at giving a loan building a loan portfolio specifically for climate and gender in WASH for 1 billion Kenya shillings. And we expect again about 3 million people in this program, and we are targeting around 480 MSMEs and water service providers. Then in support of inclusion for the climate focus, we target that 40% of these funds will go to credit facilities to women-led businesses, and 60% will go to facilities for climate-proof infrastructure to WASH SMEs and WSPs. So this one is going to catalyze, the program is going to catalyze access to WASH financing and provide resources to the water and sanitation sector in Kenya. Then this is leveraged on what I have spoken before about the blended, this is a blended finance program, which is for 3 years, then integrates climate action and gender inclusion in WASH financing. This is the latest, and we launched it the middle of June, and we believe that you should be able to get quite some traction on this. I think this should be among my last slides. The others are just testimonials on what we've been able to do. So this one, I'll not speak into it, but just a pictorial glimpse of the communities that we've been working with. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah, and next slide. Yeah, so we've been also working with some microfinance institutions who come and get even lending to lend again on WASH. So some of the forums attended, not looking at the ones local, just international. We had the UN Public Service Awards, where we had been invited because of our partnership with the Water Sector Trust Fund in Dubai. Then we have the Stockholm Water Week, where we were invited to showcase the work that we are doing. And also the UN Water Week that was in 2023 in New York. This again was a forum that we had invited just to showcase what we are doing in the country on the WASH space. I think this should be then my last slide as I come to the end. Any other slide? Yeah, these are just testimonials on the videos that we have done in the past, and definitely which customer testimonials on the support that they've gotten. So I think I will pack it at that and give it back to you, Wise. And it was a pleasure doing this presentation. I know it was a bit of a mouthful, so I had to rush a bit. But in essence, it is just speaking to the work that we are doing as a bank and our commitment to ensuring that we continue supporting the sector. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, John, for taking us through that presentation. I think it's very clear as well and interesting for all of us here to know the journey Citizen Bank has been on, to take an interest in their clients and to take on the mandate of water and sanitation from the private sector in Kenya, and what that growth has been for you to a point where now you are also expanding your portfolio towards more climate resilient wash. I think I will pause here before moving ahead with Carlos. I would like to check if there are any questions that would like to be addressed right now for John, as he might want to leave at some earlier than before. So maybe we pause here to keep the questions. Do have two questions directly addressed to you, John. One would be, would you consider working in this, I guess, in this new portfolio, working with small tech startups in wash financing? Is that something that Citizen Bank is looking at?
Yes, I think as a bank, that's something that we can consider. The only challenge that, okay, we still have a bit of a challenge with some of the startups. So we have to look at the viability of the project that is being, the startup, the project that they're engaging on. So the minute we see the viability of it, then we can be able to see how we can work together to finance the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another question from Adhisti that says, you mentioned that these companies in water and sanitation sectors may have specific needs, which may not be loans. What are some examples of these specific needs, if you could share that with us?
I think some of the needs that we've noticed in some of these companies, you see, even the public utilities are not able to connect people with water each and every other part of the country. So you have some private players who come into the space. One of the unique challenges that we've seen is, for example, financial literacy, where they need to be taken through how to invest the money that is being generated and how to invest more. Because sometimes some of these businesses, especially the ones which are privately owned, it is very hard to differentiate the business from the owner of the business. So the money that is generated essentially sometimes goes to specifically even personal needs. And you find somewhere down the line, them struggling in terms of meeting the objective for which they set out. So basically, we have challenges with the likes of financial literacy, even bookkeeping, even because when they come for follow-up loans, sometimes if the money has not been channeled through the bank, becomes a bit of a challenge, telling their credibility in terms of the credit worth and their rating. So these are some of the challenges that we are able to address as we go along.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more question from, and then maybe you can also answer some of them in the chat directly as well as we move ahead, John. But another question that is there right now is it possible to get more details on what kind of loans are offered to Citizen Bank individuals or micro enterprises? I think you might have taken that in the presentation. Have you identified technical partners to provide specific equipment or people? Does it happen? Do you work in a partnership model with equipment providers, for example?
Yes, we do work in partnership with equipment providers. Remember, from a bank's perspective, if you go to our website, you'll find that we are also very strong from a trade perspective. So we do work with the likes of Davis and Shatleaf locally in the country. We also do work with quite a number of other partners who are able to give solutions in the water sector, the likes of Chloride Exile, the likes of Ob Energy, in terms of giving solutions. So by the time we are giving these loans, we look at the need that is there. We look at how cheaply can you be able to get it. If there's a local solution and a local partner that you can be able to work with, then definitely that would be priority, because we try to maintain the cost as low as possible for our customers. And again, that ensures viability and reduces the chances of default in the facilities that we give to our clients. So yes, we do work with partners, local and international, for technology solutions.
Thank you. Question myself on the presentation that you gave. And I think what really I'm interested in learning today is especially in terms of, so you said you have this new project coming up where 40% is going to be more gender focused disbursements, but 60% is going to be climate-proof infrastructure. What does climate-proof infrastructure mean for the bank when they're assessing these kind of projects? And how do you understand this? What is the need for this?
Okay, that's a good question. Now, when it comes to the aspect of what we are looking at giving to our clients, the 40% that goes to women and the other that goes to 60% goes to climate. For climate, first of all, the biggest need that we have identified in this particular market is especially on the aspect of solarization. Because if you look at the challenges that are there currently in the country in terms of access to water, the biggest challenge is getting access to finance, and also mitigation. Mitigation in terms of energy efficiency in water supply systems, investing in energy efficient technologies, because every other day we are getting new technologies coming about. Also, renewable energy facilities, the projects that integrate renewable energy sources into the water treatment and basically sanitation facilities. All those are very, very key for us. Again, adaptation. If you look at the climate in Kenya, what has been happening is that we have been having the different seasons, a very long, prolonged rainy season, a prolonged dry spell. So again, building resilient infrastructure and also water resource management, and also making sure that the programs that the communities run are able to adapt to the different situations that are there. That's why, for example, we would give a loan to one of our customers and also insist that they open a cash build-up account, just to ensure during the time that there is seasonality in terms of people have harvested water and now they do not need the water that the WSP is providing, they are still able to pay their facilities based on what has been built up in the cash collateral account. Again, we are also getting a lot of needs coming for us to do green bonds and climate bonds. So that again for us is basically a key sector we would want to play in. And also the sustainable, basically SDG 6, where we are talking about sustainable clean water and sanitation. So some of the ways that our people go through for them to be able to get clean water, again, might affect our climate in terms of even pollution and the like. So again, for us, very key focus areas in terms of how we can be able to play in this particular space.
I think it really does answer a lot of challenges that you'd identified as well in your learning, which was about seasonality of rainfall, disruption in power, or even the cost of power. And I guess that also feeds into this new project that you have. Thank you so much, John. I think I would also be very interested in seeing how Carlos at Azure kind of tackles climate resilience wash infrastructure from their perspective. Over to you, Carlos. Also, John, there are some more questions in the Q&A. I don't know if you could have a look at them and maybe answer them directly. It would be nice for the attendees.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Owais, and thank you to the European Microfinance Platform for this invitation. We really appreciate the opportunity to learn from the experiences of other financial organizations like what John Patrick was describing. I'm here on behalf of Catholic Relief Services, which is the organization that leads the Azure Blended Finance Initiative. Azure is the umbrella under which a number of organizations deliver a blended finance approach that enables small-scale water service providers to become creditworthy, to access private commercial capital, and essentially to become sustainable organizations. So if we can move on to the first slide, please. This presentation will have 5 sections. First, I want to quickly describe what the background of Azure is, how we're structured, and who are our partners. Secondly, I want to mention what is the context of the geographic area where we work. I will move on to present how the Azure solution works. and more specifically, how we approach implementing and enabling climate change resilient infrastructure projects. And I will end up by sharing with you a couple of success stories of in communities that have been supported by Azure. Next. Well, the Azure Blended Finance Initiative was rooted in CRS's water security strategy. Azure is the key element of one of the three pillars of our water security strategy, which is governance and finance. CRS back in 2018, 2019 established the objective to work on governance and finance. And as such, it partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank to set up this blended finance approach. Next. There are a number of legal entities that are involved in the implementation of the Azure initiative. We have a number of technical service partners, which are the organizations that deliver on the field the capacity strengthening services to the water service providers. We also established an impact investment fund. The founding partners, the Inter-American Development Bank, together with CRS, are the controlling equity shareholders of this impact investment fund called Azure Source Capital, which is an LLC domiciled in the US. Azure Source Capital has a fund manager, which is Total Impact Capital, another US-based company. And we also have set up so far two trust funds, one in El Salvador, one in Honduras, which have their respective trustees. So it is at times quite a complex structure with a number of legal entities that are involved. Next. Just to give you an overview of the different types of partners that work under the umbrella of the Azure initiative. We have the financial intermediaries, for example, which are commercial banks, financial cooperatives or non-bank banks in the three countries where we work. This is a non-comprehensive list, but you have some examples there. The two organizations that serve as trustees of the Impact Investment Fund are the National Development Banks of El Salvador, Bandesala, and Banprovi in Honduras. We have a group of technical service partners in each of the countries where we work. We have also established close relationships and work regularly with the chambers of construction associations that are leading technical activities on water engineering and others. And finally, you can see the investors and lenders that contribute to private capital, to Azure Source Capital. Initially, some of the founding investors included the United States Development Finance Corporation and foundations, charitable foundations like Mercy Capital and others. Next. Our work is implemented at present in 3 countries where we're working at scale. Azure was launched in 2019 in El Salvador. We moved to work at scale to Honduras in 2021, and we have started to implement Azure in Guatemala this year, following a preparation, an earlier preparation. We have also done feasibility studies and did a short-term pilot in Nicaragua earlier. Next. Very quickly, just to mention that the region where we work is one that is most severely affected, or that is at most risk in terms of vulnerability of climate change. Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador rank at the bottom of the countries that have capacity to respond to climate change risks. The communities in these countries have historically been affected by climate change induced events and are among the most vulnerable in the world. Next. More specifically, in Honduras, the food and water security are those activities that have been identified to be more at risk. In El Salvador, it has been determined that there are losses of 2.5% of GDP annually, and is second highest for risk exposure to tumor hazards. Guatemala also has a very high degree of vulnerability, water storage, drinking water, the water quality, and the effects on health are some of the main areas of vulnerability in Guatemala. Next. When we look at the financing gaps that exist in our region to attain SDG 6, we can see that more or less it is required an investment that is would represent multiplying by 3 the current level of investments to attain SDG 6. So this explains why our 2 key objectives are to bridge the financing gap to attain SDG 6 and to enable the financial inclusion of the small-scale water service providers. All of this will enable, in turn, to have sustainable water services over the long term. Next. The Azure solution is particular in our integrated approach of these 2 resources: technical services or technical assistance that is integrated with the financing, structuring, and capital mobilization. These 2 resources work under one roof. We work in a very integrated manner, delivering these elements to enable the capital projects to be bankable, to have sound engineering, permitting, and all the elements that make them sustainable. With these 2 elements, the water service providers can upgrade, can rehabilitate, or expand their infrastructure, and they can do that in a manner that results in strengthening climate resilience. We focus on 4 areas that are essentially adaptation responses to climate change. One is water metering, which is essentially a precondition for most of our projects, both for household water metering and the macro metering at the network level. We are also seek opportunities to introduce solar-powered pumping schemes. We work as a general rule enabling WSPs to improve the efficiency of the water distribution, because that is an opportunity to become more resilient in the long term, and to also make to have an energy efficiency improvement as a whole. And another key aspect that we support is water treatment. So drinking water treatment to respond as an adaptation measure to the deterioration of raw water that often and progressively becomes a problem when a higher level of solids is coming into these communities, and therefore a more sophisticated capacity to treat the water is required to provide safe drinking water. So that is another important adaptation solution that we deliver. Next. To describe briefly our approach and structure, as I mentioned, we have two modes of delivering capital. One is through on-lending via local financial intermediaries. So Azuros Capital funds the local trust fund, which in turn provides long-term funding, finance at commercial rates to the financial intermediaries, which in turn strengthen their balance sheets and can provide this long-term finance to the WSPs. We have recently introduced a direct lending scheme that we can offer on a case-by-case basis to sophisticated or more consolidated WSPs that meet the criteria that our investment committee has established. So the on-lending approach, the direct lending, plus a partial credit guarantee scheme are the three mechanisms that we have established to mobilize private capital in the sector. Next. The technical services team that manages through, essentially this is a CRS team that manages the technical services system, technical services activities, focuses on two aspects. One is to strengthen the capacity of the WSPs, and the second one is to make bankable projects. So we work at the level of the organization, and we work at the level of the projects, building the technical dossiers of these projects. Next, please. Just a quick additional comment on these adaptation projects that we work. I mentioned metering, which is essential in terms of enhancing the resilience of water systems to determine the use to make an equitable allocation of the scarce water resource, and also to make sustainable the provision of the water services by introducing metered consumption and rates that are rates and subsidies also according to metered consumption. photovoltaic solutions, which are very self-explanatory. Of course, enable a level of resilience in the region where the reliability of the energy provision is not given, and much less in cases of storms or other major weather-induced conditions like droughts, where the energy producers are not able to meet demand. We mentioned water distribution and water treatment. We work in particular with solutions developed by our partner, which is Agua Clara Research. It's a consortium that was originally established by Cornell University, that has a set of water treatment plants that are low cost. So, and we work very closely with them to implement these type of solutions. At the end of the day, all that we do is hand in hand with the private sector, and in that respect, we also mobilize these private sector resources in the various countries where we work. Next, please. So the climate vulnerability is addressed through the Azul Blended Finance Initiative. We are very aware that the small-scale water service providers, but also medium-sized or even large scales, have not the resources or the expertise to access climate finance, and we intervene as a broker to facilitate that access. Next. Two examples of projects that we have developed. The first one is in El Salvador for a community-based water service provider. This is one of the very sorry, no, this is this is one which is involved three sources of funding. It involved a loan for $39,000. It involved a grant contribution by the municipality of $30,000 and another grant contribution of $10K by a sugar mill, plus support in terms of technical assistance funded by CRS Philanthropic Resources and IDB, for a total project value of almost 100K. So you see how by brokering and structuring these blended finance solutions, we enable projects of a scale that otherwise would not be attainable if it was only if they were only relying on grants. In this case, part of the solution involved the equipment of solar pumping station plus other metering equipment for rural water and community-based water system. You can see the next one, which is also in El Salvador, and this indeed is one of the first ones that was developed by the Azul team and its partners. In this case, the objective was twofold. On one hand, to acquire a piece of land that enables this WSP to protect the water source and to manage in the long term their water resource, so to have a control over this key asset, thus improving its resilience to climate change variations. And as you can see also in this case, there were a number of sources that came into the blend that was structured by CRS team and its partners. In this case, the blend included grants from the municipality, included a grant from the Ministry of the Environment, included a loan of 50K and a grant from the Rotary Club. So it is interesting also to mention that this particular system, this WSP, has taken 2 subsequent loans. So what we're seeing is a pattern where WSPs that can access commercial finance move on to execute not only one project, but a series of projects that are part of an investment plan. I think I only have one more slide, probably, if you can move. Yeah, this is a summary about what we have faced as challenges, our response, and our successes. Specifically, to date, we have provided technical services to more than 320 WSPs that provide services to almost 200,000, more than 200,000 people. Overall, we have mobilized $12.3 million, of which 9.3 have come through loans. And this has benefits 27 WSPs. The important aspect from a financial perspective is that our portfolio does not have any defaults or arrears, so it is a very healthy portfolio overall. We'll look forward to responding to any questions you might have, and I thank you for this opportunity to share our work. And obviously, we are always open and interested in identifying partners for the next phases of expansion and the current phases of work, both as in terms of resources for technical assistance and investment. So thank you again.
Thank you, Carlos. Extremely impressive to see the work that has happened so far as Resource Capital. And also, yeah, really tackling the crux of the problem sometimes, right? Especially when it comes to efficient water resources, with metering, with sustainable water use, with reducing non-revenue water. I think those are very important challenges that have been identified over the years for both public and private utilities. And yeah, it's a really interesting approach that you take through this blended finance model, which is also highlighted, of course, by John. I'm looking at questions. If people have questions, please do reach out. There is a question on the chat, which I also am interested in, but I'm going to direct that to Carlos. It's by Tabe. He asks whether, if you've noticed more deliberate, being more deliberate in pursuing climate metrics in your WASH financing, does it help you unlock additional or new climate finance sources? Have you been able to approach new climate-focused investors by taking this approach, for example? Have you been mobilizing more climate finance into the network?
Well, that is our objective. We designed this initiative with a view on the SDG 6 indicators and targets. But we are moving towards monitoring and reporting on our results in terms of SDG 13. And we expect that by having an improved framework, impact framework that that comprises both SDG 6 and SDG 13, we can open the gates to these other new investors that are pursuing opportunities in terms of climate finance. It is not how we started, but we are moving towards that, having that type of metrics and reporting to attract those investors. And that's an ongoing work.
And do I understand then that it has been receptive from these kind of investors when you are approaching them? Is this something that they're open into, including WASH as well, into climate finance?
Yes, very much so. I mean, we are seeing more and more not only interest, but eligibility requirements from investors and grant donors on the climate change aspect. So it is just an acknowledgement of water as centerpiece of any adaptation strategy. And I would say that one of the challenges we face is that because we are focused on small scale water systems, the ticket size, or the average ticket size that we structure are not as significant as some of these investors might be looking for. So we need to find the right match of investor that also deliberately wishes to contribute to support these small scale systems.
Yeah. Yeah, I think very rightly said about eligibility requirements as well. I think the more that projects like this have visibility as well, the larger investors who are making the decisions also can perhaps start including these kind of projects in the eligibility requirements, and therefore get more people in the sector as well, reframing or able to access certain kind of capital. There's another question out here, which again from tape, is do you have examples of how your beneficiaries' clients upgrade to commercial private capital providers? I think this question came a bit early on into the presentation, so maybe you did answer in some part, but would you like to take this question?
Yes, we have various examples, and I would say that in most cases, the WSPs that receive technical assistance from Azure partners access for the first time commercial finance. And we work in three segments. We work on the community-based segment. We work also with municipalities or municipal-owned systems, and we also work with for-profit WSPs. The first two segments are in all cases WSPs that have access for the first time commercial finance thanks to the technical assistance that we have provided, and that has enabled them to establish a credit history, that has enabled them to, for some of them, to obtain a second or even a third loan. But it has also been the case with municipally owned systems. We work, for example, with the water utility of the third largest city in Honduras, that for the first time has accessed commercial finance, and we're working with them now to implement their second and third project. Hopefully, we will be closing those before the end of this year. That is the city of Choloma in Honduras, to be more specific.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I'm also noticing that we are out of time actually for today's session. Both the participants have shared their contact information, and we will share we'll share some material from this presentation as well on our socials and also on the European Microfinance Watch AG webpage. You can look out for the presentations and for the recording as well. Thank you so much to all the participants who were present. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you for the organizers. This was very interesting. I hope this conversation continues offline as well. And we take it into our networks and let's build some more resilient water sanitation systems. Thank you and goodbye.